Story 1. The Beach Challenge Nightmare. The salty tang of the ocean breeze mingled with the nervous anticipation that hung heavy in the air as I stood among my pledge class, a group of 15 young men bound by ambition and the unspoken promise of brotherhood. It was the final week of our fraternity pledge process at our beachside college, where the campus sprawled lazily along the sun-kissed shores of the Atlantic. The so-called Beach Challenge loomed over us, a whispered legend among the pledges, shrouded in mystery and dread. The brothers had been tight-lipped about the details, but rumors swirled of a grueling test of endurance and loyalty, one that would push us to our limits and beyond. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of crimson and gold, the brothers rounded us up and piled us into a convoy of battered vans. The drive was long, the silence broken only by the hum of tires against asphalt and the occasional nervous chuckle from one of my pledge brothers. After what felt like an eternity, the van screeched to a halt, and we were herded out onto a desolate stretch of coastline, 12 miles from the comforting lights of campus. The air was chilly, unusual for a coastal night, and it sent shivers down my spine that had little to do with the cold. The brothers, their faces obscured by shadows, handed us a massive keg filled with a foul-smelling concoction that burned as it went down. 1 hour, barked Ramirez, our pledge master, a towering figure with a penchant for theatrics, who insisted we call him Los Pollos, a nod to his favorite TV show. Finish it or you're done. We complied, our throats raw and our heads swimming, the alcohol blurring the edges of our fear. Once the keg was drained, the brothers led us to the beach, where they bound our wrists with coarse rope, blindfolded all but Chandler, who was to be our guide, and stripped us of our phones, watches, and shoes. Make it back to the house by sunrise, Ramirez growled, his voice dripping with menace, or you're out. Left alone, we stumbled forward, tethered together like a chain gang, with Chandler at the helm. The sand was cold and damp beneath our bare feet, and the rhythmic crash of waves was our only companion. At first, we tried to keep spirits high, trading jokes and stories, but as hours dragged on, exhaustion set in, and silence enveloped us. My mind wandered, trapped in a haze of fatigue and alcohol, until a sharp tug on the rope snapped me back to reality. I assumed Whitworth, my clumsy friend directly in front of me, had tripped again. I paused, waiting for him to recover, but something felt wrong. Too quiet, too still. Another tug, harder this time, urged me forward, and I resumed walking, my heart pounding. Then my foot hit water, not the damp sand I expected, but the cold, shallow edge of the ocean. Confusion gnawed at me. Why was Chandler leading us into the sea? The water crept higher, lapping at my ankles, then my shins. I strained my ears, catching the faint hum of an engine, a boat growing louder with each step. Panic clawed at my chest. "Guys, what the hell are we doing in the water?" I shouted, my voice cracking. No response. I called again, louder, but the silence was deafening. Desperate, I tore off my blindfold, my wrists straining against the rope. What I saw froze my blood. Whitworth was gone. In his place stood a stranger, a grizzled, middle-aged man with wild eyes clutching the frayed end of the rope. In his other hand gleamed a rusty kitchen knife, its blade catching the moonlight. Behind him, a small boat bobbed in the waves, its deck crowded with 3 more shadowy figures. Time slowed as I realized the truth. This was no fraternity prank. This was something far darker. I screamed, a raw, primal sound, and yanked my arms upward with all my strength. The man lunged, grabbing my shirt, but I drove my foot into his chest, sending him sprawling into the water. The rope slipped from his grasp, and my shirt tore with a sickening rip. I bolted, my bare feet pounding against the sand, the sound of splashing behind me signaling pursuit. Something whizzed past my ear, the knife embedding itself in the water ahead. My heart thundered as I reached dry land, glancing back to see 2 men in the water, their faces blank and unreadable, staring after me. The others remained on the boat, motionless. I didn't stop. I ran until I hit the road, flagging down a passing car with trembling hands. The driver, a kind-eyed woman, let me use her phone to call the police. When they arrived, the boat and its occupants were gone, vanished into the night. Fearing repercussions for the fraternity, I spun a vague story about a random attack, and the cops didn't press me further. Back at the house, my brothers were more annoyed with Chandler for not noticing my absence than concerned for my ordeal. Life resumed, and I became a brother, but the incident haunted me. Weeks later, while playing beach volleyball behind the frat house, Jackson spotted something chilling, a piece of my torn t-shirt tied to a stick planted in the sand. The realization hit me like a freight train. Someone had known exactly where to find us. My brothers speculated that the attackers recognized our fraternity's insignia, but I couldn't shake a darker theory. What if they'd known about the beach challenge? What if they'd been waiting, watching, ready to prey on vulnerable pledges, stumbling blindly along the shore? The thought still sends shivers down my spine, a reminder of how close I came to disappearing into the night. Story 2. The Forest Ritual. The humid air of the southern night clung to my skin as I sat blindfolded in a field, the grass prickling beneath me. I was 19, a freshman at a sprawling party school where Greek life was less a tradition than a religion. Tonight was the culmination of months of pledging, the night my class of 20 would shed our novice status and become brothers of the fraternity. The initiation process had been a gauntlet of absurd tasks, singing off-key in crowded cars, enduring late-night scavenger hunts. But this felt different. The brothers had been cryptic, their smirks hinting at something momentous. At 10:30 p.m., they'd blindfolded us, confiscated our phones, and loaded us into a fleet of cars. The drive was disorienting, filled with forced renditions of a fraternity anthem blaring from the speakers. When the cars finally stopped, rough hands guided me out, leading me across uneven ground to a spot where I was told to sit and stay silent. The sounds of my pledge brothers settling around me were muffled, and the brothers' stern commands to be quiet echoed in the stillness. I assumed we were in a field, far from the neon glow of campus, but without my sight I could only guess. A voice, deep, authoritative, broke the silence, delivering a speech about brotherhood and worthiness. Then one by one, my pledge brothers were led away, their footsteps fading into the night. I waited, the minutes stretching into what felt like hours, the chirping of crickets and rustling of leaves my only company. Unease crept in, tightening my chest. Where were they taking everyone? Was this part of the ritual, or had something gone wrong? Finally, a hand gripped my wrist, pulling me to my feet. Without a word, my guide led me forward, the ground shifting from soft grass to jagged terrain. Twigs snapped underfoot, and branches scraped my arms, confirming we were in a forest. The blindfold chafed against my eyes, and I spoke up, my voice trembling. "Can we stop? This thing's killing me." The hand released me, and I paused, rubbing my eyes beneath the fabric. Then a voice, low, raspy, and unfamiliar, growled, "Take it off." My blood ran cold. That wasn't a brother's voice. Hesitating, I slid the blindfold down, and my world tilted. Standing before me was a tall figure dressed in black, his face hidden behind a white Guy Fawkes mask, the kind from protest rallies and hacker manifestos. His eyes glinted through the mask's slits, and before I could process the sight, he lunged, his voice a guttural snarl. "You're coming with me!" I stumbled back, a scream tearing from my throat. This wasn't a prank, it was a nightmare. We grappled, his hands clawing at my throat, but adrenaline surged and I shoved him off with a strength I didn't know I had. I ran, the moonlight filtering through the trees my only guide, branches tearing at my clothes. My heart pounded as I glanced back, expecting to see him gaining on me. But the forest was eerily silent. Voices called my name in the distance, my brothers searching for me. I crashed into one of them, babbling about the masked man who tried to abduct me. 5 or 6 brothers charged into the woods with flashlights, their faces grim, while another stayed to calm me. As we emerged from the trees, I realized we were in a backyard, likely one of the brothers' off-campus houses. The entire fraternity stood on the porch, their expressions a mix of shock and guilt. They explained the unthinkable. I'd been the last in line, and the brother assigned to escort me had somehow overlooked me in the dark. Minutes later, they'd noticed movement in the woods and realized I was missing. The brothers who chased after my attacker returned, their faces pale, urging everyone to flee. In the car, they revealed what they'd found: a bonfire in a clearing, surrounded by figures in black cloaks and white masks, chanting and tossing objects into the flames. When one brother snapped a branch, the figures turned, their masked faces chillingly uniform, and charged. The brothers fled, calling the police as they locked up the house. Days later, a chilling discovery deepened the mystery. While playing football in the same backyard, a brother found a white guy fox mask hanging from a tree, its empty eyes staring down. The police took it as evidence, but no arrests were made. Theories swirled: rival fraternity prank, local cult, or something more sinister, but no answers emerged. I couldn't sleep for weeks, haunted by the masked man's raspy voice and the thought of what might have awaited me in that clearing. The fraternity tightened security, but the incident left a scar, a reminder that some rituals invite dangers no one can predict. Story 3. The Subway Crawl Terror. 8 years ago, I was a student at Cooper Union, a small technical school nestled in the chaotic heart of Manhattan. New York City was a playground of possibility, its pulse thrumming through every street and subway tunnel. Fraternities were rare at Cooper, but I joined one to secure a social lifeline: parties, connections, a sense of belonging in the urban jungle. The pledge process was tame, filled with lighthearted tasks, but the initiation centerpiece was anything but: the subway crawl, a clandestine rite that sent pledges into the city's abandoned underground. The crawl was simple in theory. We'd enter the subway system at 3 a.m., when trains were scarce, slip onto the tracks from an active platform, and navigate to an abandoned station. There we'd snap photos as proof of our daring, then continue to the next active platform. The brothers provided subway schedules to ensure no trains would catch us off guard, and we were warned to avoid the electrified third rail. As an urban exploration enthusiast, I was thrilled, my nerves tempered by excitement. My pledge class of 10 included Riker, an Albanian jokester whose laid-back charm and penchant for weed made him my closest ally. Under the cover of night, we descended into the subway, the air thick with the smell of oil and metal. Riker and I took the rear, our group armed with 2 flashlights and a cheap film camera. The tunnel was a cavern of shadows, the dim glow of maintenance lights casting eerie patterns on the walls. I handed my flashlight to a nervous pledge brother, leaving Riker and me in near darkness. Not 30 seconds into the trek, Riker grinned, pulling a joint from his jacket. "No sharing," he whispered, nodding toward the others. Against my better judgment, I joined him, the thrill of smoking in a subway tunnel outweighing my caution. The weed hit hard, clouding my mind as we lagged behind. The group's laughter faded, and we hurried to catch up, our footsteps echoing. Then Riker froze, pointing ahead. In the tunnel's dim light, a silhouette stood motionless, facing us. "David?" Riker called, thinking it was a pledge brother. No answer. A moment later, David's voice echoed from far ahead, and dread washed over us. This was no brother, it was a stranger. As if triggered by David's voice, the figure sprinted toward us, silent and swift, like a predator closing in. Panic surged, amplified by the weed, and we turned, bolting back the way we'd come. The figure's footsteps were unnervingly quiet, as if it glided rather than ran. Riker gripped my arm, his usual bravado gone. "Faster!" he hissed, his voice raw with fear. We knew a train wasn't due yet, but running blindly felt wrong. Riker yanked me toward a divider separating the tracks, and we scrambled across, hoping to lose our pursuer. The new track was a gamble. We had no schedule for it, no idea when a train might come. We sprinted toward the abandoned station, praying we'd shaken the stranger. But the figure crossed the divider, relentless, its silhouette growing closer. My lungs burned, my mind racing with visions of being trapped between a train and our pursuer. The tunnel vibrated, and a distant light flickered, a train barreling toward us. Despair clawed at me, but Riker shouted, "Right here!" A crossing point appeared, a miracle in the dark. We scrambled back to the original track, sprinting until we reached the abandoned platform where our pledge brothers waited, oblivious to our ordeal. Gasping, I vomited while Riker explained our chase. Seconds later, the train on the other track roared past, shaking the platform. We braced for a confrontation, but no one emerged. Then a chilling yell echoed from the tunnel, distant but unhinged. How the stranger avoided the train, I'll never know. We waited for our track's train to pass, then fled to the next station, shaken but alive. In hindsight, it might have been a homeless person, startled or high, not truly a threat. But in that moment, fear ruled us, driving reckless decisions. The crawl was never repeated, and the fraternity swore us to secrecy. Riker and I still laugh about it, but the memory of that silent, sprinting shadow lingers, a reminder of the dangers lurking in the city's forgotten depths.